speak with you today. I'm really honored to be here and really pleased to have a chance to share a few of my thoughts with all of you. As many of you might know, the theme for the Women's Resource Center for this year is the rhythm of change. If there's one thing that's constant in our lives, it is change. Let me see if I can put the microphone back where it belongs. Let's try that. There we go. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yep.
Yes. Great. Every year we meet a new batch of students that need to adjust to their rhythm to meet them where they're at. Sometimes we pick up a beat for our colleagues when they miss a beat, or sometimes they pick up one for us for the sake of the drum circle. And just to give you an example of how that plays out, yesterday I was having lunch with my good friend and colleague, Ruben Greenwald, and he threw me this idea. He's like, Sharon, I know, why don't you start your speech with a drum circle? Like, that's going to be fantastic. And I said, are you kidding me? My speech is tomorrow. Like, how could that happen? Who's going to agree to that? And then we reached a compromise. I said, you know what? It's a really good idea. It goes really well with the theme. If you can pull together a group of people who will agree to do this on a minute's notice, then cool, we'll totally do it. And I thought that would be the end of it. A couple hours later, I got a call from Ruben saying, guess what? We're on. We're going to do this. And this is really part of why I love my colleagues at St. Mary's College so much. We build on each other's strengths for the good of the whole. If my colleagues could come together and put together a whole drumming circle with no notice, then I thought, there should really be no issue for me to go ahead and revamp my speech. So that's what I've been doing today. But that's part of the beauty of St. Mary's College, I think. We really get to meet each other where we're at. We all have different gifts and strengths, and we can really put that together to have a very quality product, not only for our students, but for each other. And Karen shared with you what my mantra is, that when life doesn't go as planned, it's really best to embrace it as content, because whatever we come up with, after all the detours and challenges, will undoubtedly be better than what we had planned for the first place. So again, this is an example. Although I do want to get that same drumming circle together again just for a quick rehearsal and then have them have one more opportunity. On a more serious note, this Lenten season has been a really humbling time for me and for many of us, I think, regardless of what our faith background is. The tsunami in Japan and the nuclear crisis at the Fukushima nuclear power plant reminded us how little we control change sometimes in the world and in our own lives. I used to live in that very same region and have stayed in touch with a lot of friends who are from there. And watching people go through this kind of a crisis in Japan and really thinking about, wow, this place that I used to hang out at, it's not there anymore. And my friends don't want to go outside because they're afraid of, getting cancer. It really caused me to take a moment and reflect and think about my own life. Think about how am I living in congruence? What are my strengths and what are my shortcomings? And as I analyzed and thought about this, there's one thing that really stuck out to me like a sore thumb. And it has to do with a student who graduated from here several years ago. His name was Dr. Clifford Straley. Did any of you know Dr. Clifford Straley? Raise your hand if you did. Okay, well, he graduated from St. Mary's College when he was 85 years old. The backstory is that he'd gone to Harvard Medical School without ever finishing his undergraduate education and decided that what he needed to do was go back and have his undergraduate education. So he enrolled in school at the age of 83, graduated at 85. He came to a lot of the Women's Resource Center events with his wife, and at one point he shared with me that he had this life dream, that he had written a series of articles and letters to his grandchildren, and his life dream was that he would publish those and make it into a book so he could pass on his legacy to future generations. And I'd always known this, and I'd never really done anything about it. The other thing that stuck out in my mind is that at one point I'd informally invited him to come to my own book signing at the Barnes & Noble in Walnut Creek. I remember him etching down the details on a yellow piece of paper and thinking, that's the end of it. I mean, who's really going to make that happen? And poor guy is 85 years old. I didn't expect him to necessarily come, but I wanted to err on the side of being inclusive. And I still remember he waddled in and he had his little yellow piece of paper and he said, Sharon, I'm here, I promise. And as I was doing my life inventory, I realized I really had to, what I had thought is I could help, before my thought was I could help Dr. Cliff put his little book together, after I'm done with all my projects. And what I realized this Lenten season was I'm never going to be done with all of my projects, and Dr. Cliff is now 90. So I got in touch with him and decided that for Lent, Dr. Ollie's in here, so I hope you're going to forgive me for this. This year for Lent, I decided I would give up 1 hour of exercise each week and go and hang out at Rossmore with Clifford and his wife and really help him go through his stories and help him figure out how to transition his book, or his letters, into a book. And that's what I've been doing. The thing that it's really taught me is that we are not indispensable, and that we should never lose sight of what is important to us. And getting ready for today, I spent a lot of time thinking about big questions like, why are we here? What is our purpose? And what does it mean to embody our 5 core principles? Faith in the presence of God, respect for all persons, inclusive community, quality education, concern for the poor, and social justice. And as many of you might know, it was mentioned in my introduction, I'm a field reporter on the weekends. I'm much better at asking questions than answering them, so I decided I would do what I did best. And I picked up my little recorder, and I went around and started talking to my colleagues. And there was one interview that really stuck out to me. So I stopped by the HR department, and Melanie was there, and she said, you know what, I'll talk to you for a second, but you know what, I think you need to talk to Eduardo. So I had never had a chance to speak one-on-one with, I apologize for that. I had never had a chance to speak one-on-one with our HR director before, so I decided I'd go ahead and break the ice like this, with a microphone in his face. And as we talked, Eduardo talked about really loving to be at St. Mary's because this job allows him to align with his life mission and his life purpose, and that stuck out to me. After I left, I started to think about what my life mission was and what my life purpose was. And I concluded that really what I'm meant to do is to connect people, to help people realize what their commonalities are. I'm going to go ahead and catch up with my cards here. And this is why, in a little while, I'm going to actually yield some of my speaking time to give you a chance to hear voices of people from around the world and people in our own community who embody our 5 core principles. You're going to see what a convicted felon, a stage 4 cancer survivor, a dyslexic author, an HR director, an administrative assistant, a cook, and an academic advisor have in common. You're going to see that we are completely surrounded by teachers in all realms of our lives. The other thing I thought about was how I ended up here. And as I pondered that question, how I ended up at St. Mary's, as I pondered that question, my mind went to 2 places. First of all, it went all the way back to when I was 17 years old. At that time, I really didn't know what my purpose was in the world. I looked horrendous. I had this terrible permed hair, braces. I was really an awkward-looking kid. On top of that, I was from a small town in Wisconsin, and I was trying to cope with my father's illness. My father is an amazing man, but he has bipolar schizoaffective disorder. I really wasn't sure what my purpose was, where I fit into the world, and what I should do. Thankfully, I had this teacher named Mrs. Thorsbach, and she took me under her wing. She convinced me to do 2 things that really changed my life. The first one is going to really blow some of your minds. She convinced me to join an organization called Future Homemakers of America. Erin was in it too, yay! Second thing was that she convinced me to apply for a Kikkoman soy sauce scholarship, which would take me out of Wisconsin and transplant me into the heart of Tokyo. And I went ahead and I did that. By the way, if you use soy sauce, only use Kikkoman soy sauce, please. They don't pay me, but I credit that opportunity for really changing my life. The thing that I think about, though, at the time I was really going to Japan to escape from my life. And I got there and I realized no matter how far we travel, we can never, ever get away from ourselves. And during that summer, I decided that what I was going to do was, rather than trying to get away from my life, I was going to delve into it and really be who I was and try to be proud about that and share my gifts with the world in the best way that I could. That was when I decided I'd become a journalist, so I'd have a license to ask as many questions as I wanted to, and that I'd become an advocate for people in some way, shape, or form, simply so I could give voice to people like my dad, whose voices weren't always heard in the world at large. And then the way that I discovered women's centers. I was a freshman and I was going to St. Cloud State University. It's about an hour above Minneapolis. And that year, during my first week of school, one of my friends was sexually assaulted. I went to my resident advisor and said, what should I do? And she said, take her to the Women's Resource Center. I did that, and I can say, to make a long story short, I've been involved with the movement to end violence against women and to really promote gender equity ever since. And for how I got here. 9 years ago, I was on my way back to Minneapolis to get a job somewhere around there. And I had spent the summer working at Premdon, the House of Sikh and Dying in India. I stopped over here for a quick job interview. It was for a 1-year job as the coordinator of sexual assault awareness and outreach. And I thought, you know what, it's going to be my first job. I'm not really sure if that's going to happen, but I'm going to hope that I get it. And my plan is after a year, I'm going back to Minnesota and I'm going to continue my life. And there we go. I had my plan all figured out. I wasn't sure that I'd get the job. I found out about my interview just before getting in the plane to leave India. I remember all I had with me was really sparkly shoes. And I remember kind of trying to hide them during my interview. Somehow they forgave me for my shoes. They gave me the job. Obviously, I revised my plan, and 9 years later, here I am. Let me arrange my cards one last time. The point is that change is constant, and it happens, and life is what happens to us when we're making other plans. But what is comforting to know is that all of life's happenings and all of life's plans, all of life's happenings and all the decisions that we've made, the good, the bad, and the unplanned for, have led us to the wonderful place that we are in right now. As you watch this video, I invite you to think about how you embody our 5 core principles and who and what you are grateful for. Thank you so much.